Sarva Vedanta Siddhanta Gocharam Tamagocharam Govindam Paramanandam Sadgurum Pranatosmyaham. Now that the universe has arisen and the jiva has become sharp enough to ask the question, the jiva then found eventually a class and a guru. And the guru now says in verse 68, O jiva, this universe is mithya. Verse 68, Sat Brahma Karyam Sakalam Sat Evam Tanmatram Etad Natataha Anyat Asti Asti Iti Yaha Vaktinat Tasya Moha Vinirgataha Nidritavat Prajalpaha. This entire world, having come from Brahman, that is of the nature of existence, is always existence, Brahman alone. There is nothing other than Brahman. His delusion has not gone, who says that there is another thing apart from Brahman. His words are like the blabbering of a dreaming man. So he says his delusion has not gone, who says there is another thing apart from Brahman. And why is his delusion not gone? Because he still believes in separation. Genuine, it's not an intentional action. He sees the effects and he concludes those effects thus must be real. And so one lives life according to that, and they do not see the whole, they do not see the cause. And the verse then says that one who fails to see the cause, because they have no framework to work through, they have no proper teaching to come from, to interpret this reality, their words are like that of a rambling man, someone rambling, someone clueless. They talk of duality, they're nidritavat prajalpaha. That means someone whose words are born of ignorance and they're just like in the dream, who, you know, sometimes we have these apps you buy to record what you say, what you ramble during your dreams. You can give away a lot of information during your dreams. And then you play back this audio, it's just very, and it's, from a distance, it sounds intelligent, but when you get close to the conversation, it is rambling. And he says things like God is elsewhere, and we are small, we are infinitesimal beings. And so they just keep on trying to convince themselves because their own words don't make sense. So they have to keep on convincing others to come onto their side. They have to keep on convincing themselves. They have to convince on and on and on, because falsehoods never persists. Falsehood by nature weakens through time. Truth remains the same. And because they're carrying these falsehoods, they become loud and sure of themselves. They want to convince themselves, because falsehood keeps on degrading day by day, and you need to preserve that which decays. That's what falsehood means, that which degrades, it decays. And whatever decays, what do you have to do? You have to keep on feeding it, feeding it, feeding it. Why? Because I invested my whole life believing this vision of Dvaita. And thus he becomes loud, even unsure of his own words, trying to convince himself. Whereas the wise person understands something very simple. The truth of a pot is always going to be clay. That's just an observable fact, no matter what. That is a fact. Whereas an unwise person, they argue endlessly. Yeah, but you know, the pot is also can be called clay and they're one and the same. And if you break the pot, then you can even create a little pot from those broken pieces. And they create these small irrational logics that you, as a smart person, are listening to. And you're going, they're just innovating new things to try to stay ahead of their own rambling. That's what a rambler does. Ramblers, they say, what is this mithya? You know, this mithya, even you give them any example, they will find a way to turn it into their teaching. Even you give them the example of a wave and ocean and water. I had this once happen where, right, the wave is compared to a jiva, you, and the ocean is compared to Ishvara, the whole, in which all waves are coming and going. And the water is both the truth of the ocean and the wave. Okay, so you get the idea. And this person, which I researched, they were someone prominent in Dvaita circles. They left a comment, this, you know, this doesn't prove anything. This is just showing even more that there is Dvaita, that the wave is eternally separate from the ocean. Because when the wave falls down, you simply come out as a new wave. Therefore, your logic doesn't show anything. And I said, you missed the point. The truth of both is the water, and that's it. There's only water. No, it doesn't mean anything. It just means that God is in everyone, but you are not God. And so, like this, I realized a long time ago, many years ago, that it's pointless trying to argue this. You need a clear mind to reconcile duality. That's just how it is. Until then, whether that one is a teacher, a high prominent figure, a well-known, respected figure, who is teaching spirituality, Adi Shankara beautifully says, his words are like that of a rambling man whose chatter is born of ignorance, like in a dream, no sense whatsoever. Now, can you argue with someone who's rambling, just rambling? No. In fact, try to argue, you're going to get affected by that. So this means let it go. And that's really a peaceful place to be in, where you no longer have this need to save others, even those who are close to you. That of itself becomes very liberating. You see, this whole idea that I need to save you, this is still born of ignorance. Because the truth is, everyone's on their own path, and Ishvara, that's called time. Time is going to eventually show them something. You can introduce, of course, an idea, but to try to convince and keep on putting it down someone's throat, this is going to turn off the person. Suppose that you've understood this knowledge and you are not like this rambler and you want to understand more. Then the teacher says to you, let me show you about the substratum and the superimposition. How this whole idea, why rambling happens. Let me show you why the ramble happens. And he says in verse 69, Brahma eva idam vishvam iti eva vani, shrauti brute atharva nishta varishta, tasmat etat Brahma matram hi vishvam. Na adishtanat binata aropitasya. So we'll take these two words, adishtanat and aropitasya. He says, the great sentence that obtains in Atharva Veda is, therefore this world is Brahman alone, for there is no separateness of the superimposed from the basis. Okay, so it just means that you cannot have mithya without satyam. So it uses the word here, aropita adhishtana. So this is the logic of superimposition, and this is the essence of Adi Shankara's teaching. Aropita will be here the snake, and adhishtana will be the, I know you use often rope, but I'll stick, okay, I'll be true to the teaching, I'll just say rope. Because it's possible to interpret a rope for a snake. Okay, so the snake here is aropita, and it just means superimposed, that which is superimposed. And because I have no reality of the rope because the obstructing variables, the lack of light is there. And because of that, I'm able to see something close to a rope, but not entirely the rope. Something that has the same outline of the rope, the same approximate as the rope, but it's not a rope. It's an entirely different thing. So the snake thus is the superimposed. Why is it superimposed? Due to not having the reality of the rope. Produces superimposition. And it's your superimposition. It's not somebody else's. And it always depends, even while superimposed, it depends on the adhisthana, on the rope. So all this time I was looking at a snaky world, and all this time it had its basis from none other than onto the rope. Why? Because I didn't have enough light, and so I couldn't perceive the right teachings. Now, when the light comes in, someone shines a torch, and now you can clearly see what it is. Now, what does that torch represent? It represents knowledge, okay? That which illumines what is. So I shine a torchlight, and now I see the fullness. And what happens to the snake? It's gone completely. So now it's literally a snake, fear, invoke, moving, projecting, snake gone completely. Now, the thing here, pause there, the basis of this argument is just to show you one simple thing. When there is ignorance of the adhisthana, there is aropita. That's it. Aropita is a snake. Now, when the knowledge takes place of the world, it is not like this. This is only to open up a possibility. This is why sometimes in Vedanta, they will attack our examples. But they don't understand the example is only meant to open up a possibility. So this means if you apply this example to moksha, what does this mean? For a wise person's perspective then, the world, like a snake, is going to disappear. Common misperception. It doesn't. So what it means is that though the snake in real world still continues, you now know it's just a superimposition. It still stays. The world remains the same. The body remains the same. Everything's the same, except it no longer has the ability to create so much fear and so much seriousness and so much concern. I no longer go and look for approval from majestic snakes. Oh, majestic snake, give me some validation. You know, I want to be with you because you're special. No longer do they get fearful of those snakes that look a little bit scary. No longer are they intimidated by intelligent snakes, because the whole thing is just a superimposition of this reality. And thus, nothing can really sidetrack you anymore. Right? You still deal with it objectively. Things may still get you here and there. Let's be realistic. It doesn't mean now that a wise person sees a tiger who's looking at you and go, oh, I don't care. The mind will feel fear. Okay? The body will feel fear.
So it's correct to say the pot is a superimposition on the clay?
The pot is a superimposition on the clay, yes. That's another way to say it. So you can see, what are we using here? Different models. On one hand, we call pot mithya. It's a satya-mithya relationship. But when you change the model, now you don't use satya-mithya, now you use aropita adhisthana. Satya-mithya, aropita adhisthana. The model has changed. Now you call it superimposition, the pot. Superimposing itself onto its substratum. Okay? And so that superimposition, lack of its reality, then we add our own personal superimposition onto it. We add a superimposition onto a superimposition. Because you see, the world is a superimposition. But then we add another superimposition onto the world. That's called personal subjectivity, pratibhasika. Personal idea, what this is, what that is, meanings. We attach meanings. So what do I have to do now? I've got two superimpositions to resolve. So now if I'm stuck, because everyone gets stuck in the first superimposition, that's personal projection, can I then get to the chance of analyzing a worldly superimposition if I'm too consumed with my personal superimpositions? No, because if you have a human being called a female body, a female or a male body or whatever body it is, a dog, and you go, oh, that's my life, that's my savior, that's my angel, that's my everything, and you're so stuck, so much giving reality to the world, and that's just one thing. And then you have food. Oh, this is delicious. The whole meaning of life is food. And then you have travel. Oh, the purpose of life is to travel. So all these meanings we attach and we get pulled, sucked into them. And we're not even at the level of the empirical superimposition. This is all personal superimposition that we're adding onto. So what does Vedanta then say? Before you even attempt to clear up and to analyze a objective, a vyavaharika means empirical superimposition, do not even try until you have removed and relatively purified your personal superimpositions. See, all psychology without exception is nothing but clearing up personal superimpositions. All therapy, personal superimpositions. Coping mechanisms, whatever you want to call it, the whole world of therapy is basically just a personal superimposition clearing mechanism. Which is why Vedanta puts so much importance on clearing up the mind. Now, when I've cleared off enough superimpositions of my own doing onto the world, now I see the world as it is. But you can't stop there, can you? Because the world is another superimposition onto its base, which is Ishvara. So now I'm ready, because I'm not disturbed and pulled by body, food, travel, not pulled by that. Now I can look at the world and go, okay, the world is like this. I'm not giving it meaning anymore. So then what's the purpose of living? This is where the question starts now. You see, this is when the person starts to ask the question, what of all of this? What am I doing this for? What does this mean? They've stopped projecting excessive value onto the world. Now they get, okay, but then what do I live for? And that is now when you begin the journey of analyzing this superimposition that you have to get to its base, including this. This is also superimposition. Don't exclude your body. Therefore, then the teaching can begin. And then the Guru says, you see, to get you out of this superimposition, I want to show you 3 defects of taking the world as real. So this is the start of going, okay, so get me out of this superimposition. So the Guru says, verse 70, Satyam yadi syat jagat etat atmanaha anantatva hanihi nigama apramanata asatyavaditvam apishituhu syat na etat trayam sadhu hitam mahatmanam. He says, if the world were real, if the superimposition were real, then the self would not be affected by it. Number 1. Number 2, the Veda would cease to be a valid means of knowledge. And number 3, the one who created the Veda would be a liar. Okay. Let's look at objection number 1. So if the world is real, let's assume the world is real. Then it says here, no, then the self would be affected by it. So this means that if the world, since it always changes, and the self, that which is unchanging, is affected by the world, then you would be an unstable entity. You would not have a moment of stability. You would have these disjointed moments in existence. One awareful presence, another completely awareful being, there will be no sense of continuity. The second problem is that if you look at world objects, what's the nature of world objects? It's change, isn't it? Yeah?
It's what? Sorry?
Change. They change. So if I want to show you this, and I only want to show you this, I have to now, and I want to now show you black, I have to displace this, move it aside, and show you this. If you want to see clear skies, you have to displace clouds and see clear sky. If you want to see daylight, you have to displace one type of state, one type of environment, and bring darkness. If you want to hear now if you want to hear b, you have to remove in order to hear b. I cannot do simultaneously. So what does this mean? If world objects were mixed up with awareness, then again, in order for awareness to come, it could not happen because it will be constantly displaced by worldly objects. And that doesn't happen. But objects come and go constantly, but there's one unmoving entity, and that is the self. Therefore, world objects don't displace awareness. Nothing pushes your awareness aside in order to reveal itself. The third argument is, if the world is real, then now the question is, that would mean the world is one thing and the self is another thing. That's what world means real, right? So then if the world is real, how can that which is real and doesn't have consciousness, because it's different from consciousness, how can it put itself together intelligently? Because you can only put things together in the presence of a conscious being. That doesn't make sense. So the world cannot be independently real apart from awareness, because there needs to be awareness for the world to come together. And then the second objection is, if the world is real, then the Veda would cease to be a valid means of knowledge. So this means, look at this, if the world were real right now, then we are wasting our time. Because this is a means of knowledge that we're learning about. So then now you're kind of worried. Oh, okay, so I might be wasting my time. So now I have to show you that you're not wasting your time, that you're not scammed. Okay? So how do we do that? We have to look at what is a definition of a valid means of knowledge. Because we say Vivekachudamani is a valid means of knowledge. Okay? Prove it to me. So the question now is, what makes something a valid means of knowledge? Fair question. There are two components. The first is called anadigatam. So anadigatam is the means of knowledge has to be unique. That means, for example, take your ear. Can anything else in the world reveal sound except your ear? See, even if you create a speaker, if you don't have an ear, then this speaker is useless. So there's only one single component that can hear sound, that can reveal sound. And what is that? Ear. So now that makes your ear or your hearing anadigatam. It is the only thing that can reveal something. So we'll say it is exclusive. Nothing else can reveal sound except ear. So this means that the Veda has to be the only possible place that can reveal awareness. And it is, because through that we have wise people who resulted from, the wisdom resulted as a product of this knowledge. So Veda is anadigatam, because it's the only place where you can find certain teachings which are not mentioned anywhere before. In fact, only now we are discovering things like certain mathematical concepts, astrological concepts, scientific concepts. All these concepts were already in the Vedas. And still, we are trying desperately to discover what is the building block of life. What is consciousness? No one today, all science in the world has the answer. They're still holding professional panels with 500, 1,000 people, with expert panels, authors, sitting across, and what do you think consciousness is? Huh? And then the other person says, well, I think, according to our investigation, it seems to be a little bit of brain activity, and this brain activity is indicative of some levels of consciousness. And we are going to map this out through using our advanced AI models today, using all the GPUs that we have, and we will one day map out and be able to do so and put it on a computer, and we will have it all there laid out for you to see your consciousness. Okay, so, and how close are we getting to this? And this goes on for 2 hours.
What about other religions?
I've already investigated this. There is, for example, Kashmir Shaivism, there is Dzogchen, there is Mahayana Buddhism is also very close. Okay, so they do mention it. The only issue with that, and I've investigated this clearly because I know someone's going to ask about it, is though they are wonderful in their, trying to make sense of the world, the methodology to arrive there is not sound. So they may still mention, for example, consciousness. There's I think there's a few more that Gnostic texts, even Buddhism also mention consciousness, the reality. But to bring it out, to transfer it to the student, that requires a pramana, a proper means of knowledge. Okay? So we're not saying that Dvaita is the only place. We're just saying, see, what's the point? If I just say to you consciousness and you're like, oh, okay, consciousness. But how do I bring that to you? That's what really matters at the end of the day.
Yeah, so Swami Taratmananda, he explains very clearly that this is not the truth. It's the way to understand the truth.
It's a way to understand the truth. Excellent.
The Vedas are, that in the Vedas or in these texts, the truth is there, and the rest of the words of religion.
Very good.
It's the stepping stone, it's the methodology, and then you throw away everything, you can throw away all Upanishads.
Yeah, exactly. We call it like reading magazine material now. Exactly. That's a very good point. The Vedas is not the truth. That truth is everywhere. There's only truth. But so what? Stop telling me about how he has truth, how she has truth. What about me? And that's why you need a proper means of knowledge to arrive there. So that's what the Veda serves. So in that sense, because the Veda shows you a map of reality and shows you who you are, for that reason we call it anadigatam. It's exclusive, and it can reveal this formless awareness through neti. Georg?
Do you mean by Vedas only Vedanta or the whole Vedas, including all the Karma?
I mean, of course, Karmakanda is to prepare your mind, of course, sattvic mind, and get certain goals of life. But I mean Upanishad section, the Karmakanda. Not the Karmakanda, the Jnanakanda. And the second is Abadhitam. Now that it's unique, suppose, let's go back to the ear. The ear is unique. I should not be able to contradict it if I have some sensibility. So sound, I can't contradict sound because it has a uniqueness to it. Like, have you heard that sound? Yes. You can't. If you say no, that's a self-contradiction. So this means that Veda has not only ability to bring you to that knowledge, but when it mentions these ideas like everything's made of intelligence, and if you use your mind and you analyze that, you can't really find the final building block, but at every level you can find that it's well put together, then naturally you start to ask, there must be some kind of an intelligent intervention to make that mithya level what it is, such as a cell. A cell knows what to do, knows what is a virus, it knows how to initiate itself. So it shows you that even intelligence must be present in the cell. And then you cannot contradict that all there is here is existence, because you cannot eliminate existence, no matter how hard you try. If you say I've eliminated existence, what you're really just saying is there's nothing there. But you're still saying there's nothing existence. Nothing is. So even nothing is dependent upon existence.
So, sorry, are those two part of the third defect?
Yeah, that's if the world was real, the Veda would cease to be a valid means of knowledge. And then I asked the question, what makes a valid means of knowledge? And then these two. Now, one more aspect that makes the Veda a valid means of knowledge, what do you think it is? One ultimate proof. Suppose these two are not good enough. But there is one even stronger proof.
Well, all contradictions got solved over the period of times.
Okay, for whom? For me. In other words, what is the ultimate proof that the Veda is a valid means of knowledge? That when I use it, I become the living proof. So you become the very thing that the Veda has been trying to communicate. Because you found that your life has worked. Your life works now. You see reality now. You recognize there's no more doubts. So this means the wise person becomes the proof for the Veda. Whereas for the unwise person, for them Veda is not proof at all. Because by the time you even tell them about the Veda, they will throw you 1,000 different objections. How it's old, how it's not right anymore, how our systems are much more sophisticated. You just leave them alone. That's why you need Shraddha. Yeah, so you become the living proof of the Veda.
Like when they find America and when the boat was there, the Indians, the natives couldn't see the boat because they didn't have an experience of the boat.
Yes.
It was a huge boat, but they couldn't see it.
Yes.
People them how the boat looks and all this. So this is
Good example. Good example. They just had no concept of the curvy shape of the...
and they didn't see it at all.
and they couldn't see it. So there's no but they still saw something. So it's not like they had total ignorance of the boat.
They saw the snake.
That's a good classic snake rope example. Now the third objection is, it says, if the world is real, then the one who created the Veda would be a liar. Because Veda says the world is mithya. Mithya means it's not absolutely real, it's dependently real. So if it were to be real, then the Lord would be a liar. But this is a contradiction. He cannot be a liar, because if you take, for example, the Veda says no object has an intrinsic value. Only the value that you give to an object, as far as that's the value it has. If the object had an intrinsic value, it would never end it. It would be desirous forever. But no object is desirous forever. So the Veda says it has no intrinsic value. And we all know this already. The Veda says everything is subject to change. And we all know this. If you look at a form, it's going to be forms within forms within forms within forms. We already know this. So all the things it says, we first need to hear it from someone, and then you go, I've never thought of that. That's so true. So Veda doesn't show you anything new. It just shows you what you knew about all along, but we just have no authoritative source to bring it out clearly, and you go, this is what my experience confirms. That's why Veda is not a belief. It's just the bringing out of what every single human clear mind is already in touch with. And that's why, of course, you need a relatively clear mind, because you give this to someone who's still in the world, and you tell them everything's subject to change. Yeah, but not comfortable with that. You tell them, money is good, but it's not the end of life. I'm out of here. You tell them that, what are you loving? When you say you love your wife, what do you love? Do you love her nose? Do you love her leg? Do you love her hair? Do you love her eyelashes? What do you love when you say you love someone? Do you love, which thoughts particularly do you love? Which sound do you like? And they're like, no, this is too much for me. That's why we need a clear mind. Okay? So, thus the conclusion is, these three defects of taking the world as real have been now expounded, and we have countered the objections and shown that the Veda is indeed a valid means. Then he continues in verse 71, and he says, he backs up his claim, he backs up the teaching, he adds strength to the teaching. He says, Ishwaraha vastu tat vajnaha nacha aham teshu avastitaha nacha matstani bhutani iti evam eva vyachiklarpat. And he says, the Lord, Ishwara, now this is a Krishna statement from the Gita. Ishwara in the Gita, as it said, who knows the truth of Brahman, declared, I, Satyam, am not in them, Mithya. And at the same time, no beings, Mithya, are in me, Satyam. So again, this is a statement for analysis. So let's look at the first. I, Satyam. See, suppose you take out the word Satya and Mithya here. Can you see how confusing that would get? So look at this. It will be like this. I am not in them and no beings are in me. What do I do with that? That's very confusing. So let's look at the first. I, Satyam, the Absolute, am not in them, Mithya. So what does this mean? Which means Brahman or Ishvara, whichever you take here, I'm not isolated to one manifestation, because them is like many, that's what them is, plural. So I am not found in any one of them. You will not find me in any one experience. You see the importance of this? You will not find me, the truth, in some kosha, in some place, in some them time, in some them special person who's going to give it to you. I'm not going to find it, someone claims, I'm going to give you moksha. I'm not going to find it in them. I, Satyam, am not in them. Can someone else give me a good example how to represent this statement? Give me an analogy.
You have several pots in front of you, and you say, the clay, I'm not in the pots.
Yeah.
The pots are just a superimposition on me.
Yeah, excellent. So you cannot say that the clay is in a pot. Is a clay inside a pot? Is it? No. No, because we just said that Mithya is nothing but Satyam plus form with a name. So you can't, what do you mean clay is inside a pot? This is actually clay, it's not a pot. Okay? So you can't say that I am somewhere in them. See, this is a very important statement. You will not find your true nature in them, in someone, at some place, at some different person in the future. You will not. Now, who else is them? The future you. The tomorrow you. So are you going to find the truth in the tomorrow body you, in the tomorrow mind you?
Water is not in the wave, because when the wave is collapsing, that would mean that the water would also collapse. Exactly.
So the attribute of the wave is not stuck onto the water. So are you going to find the truth in the future version of you? Are you? Lord says, you will not find me in them versions. It's not going to happen. That's an imagination. Because even your thought of it's going to be in the future, that's also them. Yeah? So thus it has to be here and now.
I remember Krishna says, they are in me, but I am not in them.
Yeah, he's going to say that now. Yeah. So we have undertaken the first analysis. So I am not in them. What it means simply is clay is not in the pot. Is that clear? Okay. More importantly, it means you will never find the truth in them, whoever them are. A future thought, a future time, even the time 5 minutes from now is them. Has to be here now. But now, he says, and no beings, that means no mithya are in me. No beings are in me. No mithya is in satyam. So that's like saying, you see, that's like saying that there's no pots inside the clay. Can you see why he says this? What pots are you talking about? It's just clay. There's only clay here. The pot is just a superimposition on the clay. So you will not find no beings are in me. What beings? There's only me. No beings are in me. Why? Not that they're not allowed to be in me. It's that there are no other beings but me. So very clear. So from the standpoint of the clay, is there pot inside the clay? Can you say the pot is inside the clay? No, like what do you mean by that? Like is the clay above, below, on top of this pot? No, it's all throughout. So there is no actual mithya. There's no actual beings here. Okay?
It's like two orders of reality.
Which are one and the same, but for cognitively, I have to understand two orders of reality.
It's like one order of reality you cannot find in the other, and the other does not affect here. Is that a right interpretation of this?
Yeah, so you see, we call it two orders of reality, satya, mithya. Simple. Mithya depends on satyam. Wherever there's mithya, that's exactly where satyam is. So even if you look at this thing, there's actually no such thing as pot. It's just clay. So those two orders of reality is your cognitive understanding. How do I relate with this? I don't dismiss it. I don't dismiss the differences. I appreciate the differences. You are smaller. You are bigger. But I don't forget that your truth is one and the same. So it's a way of relating with the world. So if you're now asking, what do I need to know this Satya Mithya? Because it helps you understand all things. It helps you understand your thoughts. What is the relationship between your thoughts and the self? It is like this of the pot and clay. Wherever there is a thought, you no longer say, not I. You simply understand wherever there is a thought, that's exactly where awareness is. And this is not your contradiction, because you're aware of every thought. That awareness, that's you. The thought is just a superimposition, Maya. And Maya is not something apart from awareness. This is the way to understand it. Okay? So let's replace this. Let's say, let's change the vocabulary. I, awareness, am not in them thoughts. I, awareness, am not in them my thoughts. Because what does this mean? You are giving reality to thoughts. Yeah. And that would also mean that what? You have thoughts and now I'm like somehow inside the thought, but I'm not elsewhere. No, I am everywhere. So this means you will never find awareness in stuck to one particular thought. Because if that was true, when that thought leaves, you would leave. That doesn't happen. And then conversely, now we can say, and no thoughts are in me. No thoughts are in awareness. Why? Because what's the relationship between the thought and awareness? Satya Mithya. What thoughts are you talking about? So think about what this means in real life. You tell me, what, having now come to your conclusion, how do I deal with my thoughts in the future when they arise? But let's be realistic, okay? Because I know how life works, and we all do. Things will happen, okay? And there will be very ugly shaped mithya thoughts. That will happen. How could you make this teaching work for you so that you don't deny your thoughts, obviously, but there's some as though distance between your thoughts and you? What is that distance that I'm talking about?
Momentarily true.
It's a cognitive understanding that this thought is going on. That thought belongs to this person, and that thought is there because of his punya and papam, and that thought is not going to end. But here's the thing: wherever there is a thought, I am still there. I have never gone away. And that which has not gone away, that is my true nature, and that will continue after death. Therefore, no longer do we say, oh God, I'm so stuck in thoughts, oh, I'm losing myself, because wherever there's a thought, the fact that there is awareness of a thought shows you I have never went anywhere. Because that's why we attend the spiritual journey, don't we? I'm lost. I want to find myself. But that's a thought. And there's awareness of that thought. Therefore, you're already found. You're already there. Now, in terms of dealing with life, this is, of course, your discretion, how you deal with that. But on an absolute level, the most important takeaway is this: nothing can ever displace you. You have never left. You're always here. Where? In the very fact that there is a thought implies or shows the presence of you. Like the clay. Now suppose we are in a Dvaita class. Look at this. Suppose we're in a class of duality. I'm going to show you the same statement, and I'm going to interpret it in the light of duality. And I just want you to hear how it's going to sound. Are you ready for this? Okay. So suppose I say, I am not in the world. Now I refers to God. I am not in the world. Thank you very much. You've confirmed exactly what I wanted to hear. I, God, I am not in the world. I am somewhere else. Perfect. Thank you very much. And then it continues. It says, and beings are not in me. All of us, we're not in God. Not yet. One day. We are eternally separate from Him. We are created in His image, but we are eternally separate from Him. Oh, thank you very much. I'm so touched by the statement. You see, you can take any statement, and the moment you interpret it in the light of what you've already been living, the whole teaching changes. But we don't say that. We just let you know how misinterpretations happen. It can happen. And then the guru continues, and he reassures the student who has been shown the model of creation, and now we're going through that journey. And he says, let me show you why this universe is not absolutely real. Let me show you this. And he continues in verse 72. He says, Yadi satyam bhavet vishwam sushuptao upalabhyatam ya na upalabhyate kinchit ataha asat swapnavat mrsha. If the world were real, let it be perceived in deep sleep. Because it is not at all available in deep sleep, therefore it is unreal like the unreal dream. So let's go with the first one. He says, if the world were real, if the world, the universe, were real, absolutely real, then let me see that world inside deep sleep. Because the definition of real is that which is available in the past, present, and the future. But that world that you claim to be real is not inside deep sleep. Therefore, it cannot be real. Because it disappeared. If it were to be truly independent and it have its own reality, then it could not leave your deep sleep. And thus the world is conditional. It's conditional on the basis of a waking and a dream state. Unless I introduce a waking and a dream state, there is nothing to say about the world. Thus it cannot be real. It lacks its own self-existence, its own self-effulgence. It's not there. It's cancelled out. And he continues and says, the second point, because it, that means the world, because the world is not at all available in deep sleep, therefore it is unreal like a dream. That's just what I explained. So look at this. The world disappears in deep sleep. Yeah? What else disappears in deep sleep? And? Basically all the koshas except Anandamaya kosha. So if the world disappears or is capable of disappearing and the mind is capable of disappearing, what does this mean about both of them? They must belong to the same order of reality. We call that to the same ontological order of reality. So this means both the mind and the world thus must be mithya, or you can add a name, not self. Of course, what this really shows you is one crucial fact. One crucial fact. And what is that? You don't need the world nor the mind to exist. Think about that. Thus, that one who doesn't need it must be satyam, that which is independent, doesn't depend on the world nor the koshas to be. And for this reason, the world is unreal like a dream. Because the dream is negated upon the waking is negated upon the dream, the deep sleep is negated upon the waking and the dream, and the world is negated upon knowledge. Because for you, the one who is understood, the world is not just the world anymore, it is Ishvara. So if I can negate the world not only in deep sleep, I can also negate the world through knowledge, by understanding its truth. It shows you that it was depending upon my ignorance all along. The world that I was taking as real depended upon one mind which had ignorance about that, which was so much more than the world.
In the waking state, there is self-consciousness. Yeah, I don't know your terms, but it reflects itself. That's why it is. In the dream state, it also has a type of self-consciousness, but in the deep sleep, it doesn't.
So you're saying that there's no consciousness in deep sleep.
Reflective consciousness, like I can see something, aware of something because something.
Yeah, okay, I understand. It's simple. So obviously sleep, we cannot analyze it from the standpoint of a sleep because there's nobody there to analyze. So you have to analyze deep sleep in the waking. And I told you the logic. I said the logic is, when you say I'm going to sleep, you do not mean I'm going to dream. So this means I'm going to that place other than the dream. And that means I will be there.
Somehow but you won't remember from this place.
You will remember later on, that's why we're all speaking about I slept well. So this implies there's still something that's recording that deep sleep. And we call this abhava vritti. It's just a very subtle memory that remains and records nothing. It just records nothing. And that nothingness gets played back in the waking state. And you go, let me play back what happened during the dream, and then suddenly there's a blank. And you access this blank and you go, so in reference to that blank, there was sleeping.
That is the kind of reflection. Yeah.
Can you prove that the world is not real because of there's almost no matter? When you go to deeper in the matter and you see the quarks, there's only space with a little matter. Is that a proof of the world is not real?
You can prove it right now. You just have to use your analysis to see that. See, you have to look at the word first, real. You use the word real. Real is that which is always the same, always present, never changes. And the world is not real because it doesn't remain the same. Purnamadav Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnam Eva Avashishyate. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti.